Hey everyone, welcome to the channel Epic. If you're someone who loves peeling back the layers of time, digging into ancient wonders, and uncovering stories that don't quite fit the official timeline, you're in the right place. Some of these mysteries raise more questions than answers, and a few, well, they almost hint at influences beyond this world. So don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay with us as we journey into the unexplained. We begin with the first enigma. Göbekli Tepe, celestial code or alien design. In 1994, a shepherd walking near the town of Sanliurfa in southeastern Turkey stumbled upon a stone sticking out of the dry earth. It wasn't like the others scattered across the plateau. This one was smooth, tall, and shaped. Beneath that single pillar lay one of the most profound archaeological discoveries of the modern era. Göbekli Tepe. The excavation revealed something that should not exist. A vast complex of circular enclosures made of massive T-shaped limestone pillars, some reaching 18 feet tall and weighing up to 20 tons. The stones were carved with images of animals, foxes, vultures, snakes, and abstract symbols. These weren't haphazard decorations. They were intentional, deeply symbolic, and arranged with care. But the most astonishing fact was the age. Radiocarbon dating placed the earliest phase of Göbekli Tepe at around 9,600 BC. That's over 11,000 years ago, more than 7,000 years older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, and far older than any known temple or city. It challenged everything. At that time, humanity was thought to be made up of simple hunter-gatherers. There were no permanent settlements, no farms, no metal tools, no writing. And yet here stood monumental architecture, created by a people who, according to the historical timeline, shouldn't have been able to build it. The enclosures were not built for living. No signs of food storage, trash pits, or domestic life were found. There were no nearby villages, no burial chambers. What remained were the stones, arranged in deliberate alignments, often oriented towards celestial events. Some researchers noted alignments with the rising of Sirius or solstices, suggesting not only a spiritual purpose but a possible link to the sky. Then came the carvings. On one pillar, Pillar 43, known as the Vulture Stone, were symbols interpreted by some researchers as a star map. A group of British engineers suggested it might record a comet strike around 10,950 BC, an event tied to the Younger Dryas, a sudden global cooling that reshaped ecosystems and possibly ended a previous civilization. This idea sparked a wider theory. Göbekli Tepe wasn't simply an early human temple. It was a reaction, perhaps even a memory, of something catastrophic. A cosmic event. A warning set in stone. And still, the questions deepened. The craftsmanship of the stonework was astonishing. Smooth surfaces. Deep reliefs. Uniform shapes. The pillars had to be transported from quarries over half a kilometer away. There was no evidence of the tools used to shape or lift them. No roads. No wheels. No pulleys. More puzzling still, the site was deliberately buried. Each enclosure was filled in, covered in layers of rubble and sediment, seemingly by the very people who had built it. Why would a civilization go to such effort to hide its greatest achievement? Mainstream archaeology offered careful theories. Perhaps Göbekli Tepe was a ritual center where early humans gathered, and the act of building it inspired the transition to farming and settlement. A religious revolution, not a technological one. The carvings were symbolic, the animals' totems, and the astronomical interpretations speculative. But alternative thinkers saw something more. They pointed to the scale of construction, the sudden leap in cultural complexity, and the celestial connections as signs of outside influence. According to the ancient alien hypothesis, Göbekli Tepe may have been built not just by humans, but by humans under guidance. Guidance from visitors who understood stone, sky, and symbolism. The theory proposed that these visitors, extraterrestrial or otherwise, may have come to Earth after a global cataclysm, helping a surviving human population preserve knowledge. Göbekli Tepe could have been the first step in rebuilding, or a monument to something lost. The T-shaped pillars, with their arms and hands, might even depict the visitors themselves, tall, broad-shouldered, non-human in proportion. No direct evidence supports this theory. No spacecraft. No alien artifacts. But the implications remain. A site this old, this complex, this purposefully hidden, does not fit the narrative of linear human progress. Göbekli Tepe stands as a riddle. A monument out of time. It reshapes the timeline of civilization and invites speculation about what else may lie buried beneath our feet. From the ancient hills of Anatolia, we now turn to the high plains of Bolivia, where an enormous network of perfectly straight lines spans the earth, so vast and precise, they can only be fully seen from above. The Sajama lines, Bolivia's endless signals. In the desolate altiplano of western Bolivia, where the wind whistles through empty plains and the Andean sun bakes the land dry, something vast and precise is etched into the earth. Sprawling across more than 22,000 square kilometers, it is a geometric web of razor-straight paths. Some stretch over 20 kilometers without deviating a single degree. Others intersect at angles too clean to be accidental. Altogether, they form what may be the largest network of man-made lines on Earth. These are the Sajama lines, so old, so immense, and so perfect that they can only truly be seen from the sky. And yet, until recently, almost no one outside of Bolivia had heard of them. The lines aren't shallow scratches or faint trails. They are wide, some up to 3 meters, and deeply incised, carved into the tough, rock-strewn surface by removing the top layer of dark soil to reveal lighter earth beneath. From the ground, they appear as dusty paths. From above, they resemble an immense, deliberate grid, like a message scrawled across the landscape, waiting to be read by someone not bound to the ground. There are thousands of them. No one has counted them all. And their straightness defies the terrain. The lines cut across hills, valleys, and ridges. They do not follow the path of least resistance. They follow purpose, direction, intention. Mainstream archaeologists believe these lines were created by the Aymara people, possibly over the course of several thousand years. According to this view, the lines were sacred pathways, connecting villages, shrines, burial towers, and mountain peaks. Pilgrims may have walked them in ritual processions, paths of devotion, not roads of travel. But there is no single center. No obvious pattern to the network. The lines are dense in some areas, sparse in others. Some go nowhere. Some end abruptly. Others converge in strange, circular clusters, as if tracing invisible geometry. And then there's the question of scale. Why build something so massive, so labor-intensive, across such a hostile landscape? The high plains of Sajama sit at elevations above 4,000 meters. Oxygen is thin. The climate is brutal. And yet the lines persist, worn, but not erased. To many, the Sajama lines evoke comparisons to their more famous counterparts, the Nazca lines of southern Peru. But unlike Nazca, which depicts animals and figures, the Sajama network is purely linear. It is the precision and quantity, not the imagery, that astonish. That has led some to speculate about another purpose. A few researchers suggest that the lines may have been part of a giant geoglyphic system, intended to represent a form of sacred geography. Others go further, proposing that the network could be a kind of energetic grid, mapping out ley lines, hypothetical channels of natural earth energy aligned with celestial bodies. But the most provocative theory suggests something even more radical. That the Sahama lines were made to be seen from above. Not by humans standing on a hilltop, but by something flying. The argument is simple. No person on foot could appreciate the vast geometry. No ground-based viewer could perceive the full design. The only vantage point that makes sense is aerial. That raises the unsettling possibility that whoever made the lines, or whoever they were made for, had access to flight. Proponents of the ancient alien hypothesis take this a step further. To them, the Sahama lines are messages or landing grids, created to guide or communicate with beings descending from the sky. The convergence points may have marked locations of arrival. The massive scale may have been intended not to be walked, but to be scanned, read, or interpreted from orbit. Skeptics, of course, reject such ideas. They point to the religious and cultural importance of pilgrimage in Andean tradition. They remind us that the Aymara were capable of stunning feats of engineering, from terraced agriculture to stone towers. The lines, they argue, are human, extraordinary, yes, but not extraterrestrial. But then there is the matter of their preservation. The Sahama lines are thousands of years old, yet they remain visible despite erosion, weather, and time. There are no protective barriers, no regular maintenance. And still, they endure, faint but present, stretching to the horizon like forgotten instructions left for someone to find. Who carved them, and why, may remain a mystery. No tools have been recovered. No records explain their purpose. Just the lines, quiet, precise, and relentless. They do not beg for attention. They do not boast of their age. They simply remain, crossing the land like a language we've never learned to speak. From the sun-bleached plains of Bolivia, we now turn to a stony plateau high in the Peruvian Andes, where the wind whistles through strange stone figures, and faces of unknown origin gaze toward the stars. The valley of Marcahuasi, stone figures not of this world. High in the Andes, east of Lima, Peru, there is a plateau where silence speaks louder than sound. At over 4,000 meters above sea level, the air is thin and cold, and clouds crawl low across the jagged cliffs. But it's not the harsh beauty that draws visitors to this place, it's the stones. Strange stones. Dozens of them, scattered across the plateau, shaped in ways that seem too deliberate to be coincidence. This is Marcahuasi, a remote granite mesa just 2 hours from the edge of modern civilization, yet somehow untouched by time. Its surface is littered with enormous rock formations that, to many, resemble animals, faces, and even monuments, figures familiar to humanity, but carved by no known hand. The most striking is the so-called monument to humanity, a towering stone that, from one angle, appears to depict a human face gazing solemnly into the distance. But not just any face. It seems ageless. Neither male nor female. Not quite Peruvian, not quite anything. Just human. Or something like it. From other angles, different profiles emerge. Some believe they can see faces of different ethnicities, creatures resembling lions, camels, even elephants. All made of stone. All massive. All weathered by time. And yet unmistakably shaped. Geologists insist these are natural formations, the result of erosion and the unique qualities of the region's granite. Wind, water, and time, they say, have sculpted the stones into curious forms that only appear meaningful to the human mind. It's pareidolia, our tendency to see patterns where none exist. But those who have stood among the stones often leave unconvinced. There is something about Marcahuasi that resists easy explanations. Some of the shapes align too closely with known animals. Others seem to mimic human construction, terraces, steps, even what looks like a broken amphitheater. A handful of stones appear aligned to celestial points, matching the rising sun at solstice, or the path of certain stars. There are no inscriptions, no written records, and no verified archaeological context. Yet those who come here, researchers, mystics, hikers, feel the place is significant, as though it's trying to communicate in a language long forgotten. The mystery deepens when considering the cultural legends surrounding the area. Local Quechua and earlier traditions speak of a lost civilization that once lived in the clouds, possessing knowledge far beyond their time. They tell of people who came from the stars, who taught, who built, and then vanished. These myths, passed orally for generations, describe beings who were not gods, but something else, visitors. Some researchers have proposed that Marcahuasi was once a sacred site for stargazing or ritual. Others suggest the formations were purposefully altered, ancient statues whose rough features have blended into the rock through centuries of weathering. But if that were true, no one knows who did it, or when. There is no carbon dating available for carved rock. No tools have been found. No debris. Just stone. Old, unmoving, and silent. That silence is what draws the most outlandish theories. To believers in ancient alien contact, Marcahuasi is a relic, not of human craftsmanship, but of non-human presence. They argue the site was intentionally sculpted by or for beings who once walked the earth but did not originate here. The stones, they say, are not only monuments but markers, a gallery of forms meant to be recognized across cultures, across time. Why here? The plateau sits on what some claim is a geomagnetic anomaly. Compasses behave oddly. People speak of strange dreams, of visions. Several visitors have reported unusual lights in the night sky, unexplained orbs that rise from the rock and vanish without sound. Others speak of a strange sense of presence among the stones, as if the rocks are watching, waiting. Still, no mainstream institution has launched a formal excavation of the site. There are no protective fences, no visitor centers. Marcahuasi remains largely undisturbed, perched between the known and the unknowable. For now, it sits beneath the stars, the faces and stones softened by lichen and shadow. Whether natural or not, it holds its mystery well. From the high plateau of Marcahuasi, we now turn to Earth's orbit, where a dark object drifts silently above our world. Unclaimed, unexplained, and possibly watching us. The Black Knight satellite, alien probe in Earth's orbit. It circles above us. Silent, cold, dark, neither claimed nor explained. Long before the dawn of the space age, before the first human-built satellite pierced the atmosphere, something was already up there. Something watching. This object would come to be known as the Black Knight satellite, a mysterious presence in Earth's orbit that has captured the imaginations of researchers, scientists, and believers in the unknown for decades. Its story begins not with spaceflight, but with Nikola Tesla. In 1899, while experimenting with high-voltage radio equipment in Colorado Springs, Tesla claimed to have received repeating signals, pulses he believed came from somewhere beyond Earth. At the time, the notion was impossible. There were no satellites, no global broadcasts. Yet Tesla was convinced the message was deliberate. In the decades that followed, a series of strange observations accumulated. In the 1920s, radio operators across Europe picked up similar anomalies. Long-delayed echoes, radio signals that bounced back unexpectedly after several seconds. No known natural phenomenon could explain them. These anomalies were dismissed by many, but others kept listening. Then came the 1950s. The Cold War was heating up, and both the United States and the Soviet Union were beginning to explore the edge of space. In 1954, several newspapers, including the St. Louis Dispatch and the San Francisco Examiner, ran articles claiming that the U.S. Air Force had detected two unknown satellites in polar orbit. This was extraordinary. At the time, either country had the technology to maintain such orbits. When Sputnik 1 launched in 1957, the world officially entered the space age. But something else was already there. By the 1960s, satellite tracking stations were observing a large, unidentified object in near-Earth orbit. It moved differently than known satellites, following a polar path, something not yet achievable by existing rocket technology. Observers noted that the object appeared to shift or tumble in space, changing its reflectivity and emitting strange radio signals. Then, in 1998, during NASA's STS-88 mission to the International Space Station, astronauts captured several photographs of a dark, angular object floating high above the Earth. The shape was bizarre, jagged, asymmetrical, almost like a shard of black stone or a stealth craft. The images were released to the public and quickly became the center of controversy. NASA explained it away as thermal insulation, a piece of debris that had come loose from the space shuttle. But many weren't convinced. The object in the images didn't look like a blanket. It looked designed, precise, deliberate. For believers in the ancient astronaut theory, the Black Knight is no ordinary satellite. It is an extraterrestrial probe, placed in orbit thousands of years ago to observe humanity, possibly left behind by visitors from another world. Its unusual orbit and erratic behavior only fuel the speculation. Some suggest it's part of a monitoring system, quietly gathering data about human development. Others believe it may have once communicated, perhaps with Tesla, perhaps with others who never realized what they were hearing. Still others go further, claiming the satellite is a relic, abandoned, broken, but still functioning in ways we don't understand. There are even those who tie the satellite to ancient myths, suggesting that the Black Knight is the modern echo of stories from every corner of the globe, tales of beings who came from the stars, left knowledge, and promised to return. The satellite, they argue, could be a beacon, awaiting activation, or a watcher, silently fulfilling a task programmed long ago. Mainstream science rejects these ideas. To most astronomers, the Black Knight is either misidentified space junk, a mix of myth and misunderstanding, or a story stitched together from unrelated events. They point out that the images from STS-88 show a known object, the debris' motion explained by basic physics. Tesla's signals, they claim, were likely from natural sources, lightning, pulsars, or Earth-based interference. But for those who look deeper, the mystery remains unresolved. The object doesn't have a name in official satellite catalogs. Its orbital path isn't tracked by any government agency. Yet it continues to appear, reported by amateur satellite watchers and seen in sporadic military observations. It drifts above us, always just beyond full explanation. If it is merely space debris, its persistence is remarkable. If it is more, if it is something ancient, deliberate, and not of this world, then it represents the single most important artifact in human history. A sign that we are not alone. That we were never alone. From the cold silence of orbit, we now turn to the depths of a temple in Egypt, where on the stone walls of a crypt lie images that resemble something entirely out of place. Glass bulbs, coiled wires, and a form of power lost to time. The Temple of Hathor, light bulbs or advanced tech. Deep within the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, past columns carved with stars and ceilings painted with constellations, lies a hidden crypt. It's a narrow chamber, far below the main halls, with no windows, no ventilation, and no sign that fire ever lit its walls. Yet the stone carvings inside are astonishingly precise, their lines sharp and unblackened by soot. And among those carvings is something that continues to spark fierce debate, a scene that appears to show an ancient light bulb. Carved into the limestone are elongated, bulb-shaped objects, each containing a snake-like filament stretching from end to end. At the base, figures hold the bulbs, while a thick cable-like shape connects the object to a mysterious box. Some figures kneel as if in reverence. Others seem to manipulate the device. Surrounding it all are symbols of energy, support, and transformation. To some, these are unmistakable images of electrical lighting, centuries, even millennia, before such technology was supposed to exist. The carvings, known as the dendrolite reliefs, have become one of the most debated features in all of Egyptian archaeology. Mainstream Egyptologists argue that the scene is entirely symbolic. The bulbs, they say, are representations of the lotus flower, with the snake inside symbolizing Harsamtus, a form of divine energy. The box is a jed pillar, a traditional symbol of stability and life. In this interpretation, the imagery is spiritual, not technological. But the alternative perspective refuses to be dismissed. Supporters of the ancient technology theory point to the extraordinary level of detail, the wiring-like elements, and most of all, the functionality. In modern experiments, the shape of the so-called bulb has been replicated using glass tubes and low-pressure gas. When powered by a primitive energy source, such as the Baghdad battery, another ancient anomaly, the tube does emit light. The visual resemblance to the Dendera carvings is uncanny. Then there's the problem of lighting. How, skeptics ask, could artists have created such intricate wall reliefs deep inside the temple without fire? No soot has ever been found on the ceilings. No torches, no lamps, no mirrors. Inscriptions in other parts of Egypt describe oil lamps and fire-based illumination, but not here. Not in the crypt. The surfaces are clean. The carvings are perfect. And that raises the larger question: why would the Egyptians depict something so elaborate, so specific in shape and form, without any precedent? No other temple includes a motif like the dendrolite. It appears suddenly, and only in this hidden, sacred chamber. Some researchers argue this chamber was restricted to the highest priesthood, and possibly connected to rituals of power and energy. Whether symbolic or real, the carvings may reflect a knowledge lost to time, transmitted through memory, or even inherited from a forgotten epoch. Others go further still. According to the ancient alien hypothesis, the Dendera reliefs may be a record of technology introduced by extraterrestrial visitors. The scene, they argue, is too technical to be symbolic. It illustrates components, bulbs, wires, conductors, known only to advanced societies. These beings, some theorize, may have shared knowledge of energy or left behind working devices. Over generations, the memory of their purpose may have faded, leaving only sacred imagery in stone. It's not an isolated theory. Ancient texts and relics from multiple civilizations speak of heavenly fire, pillars of light, and gifts of the gods that brought illumination. Combined with other anomalies, the Baghdad battery, unexplained high-speed drills found in stone, and legends of glowing temples, some see a pattern. The Temple of Hathor may be more than a place of worship. It may be a repository of knowledge, preserved in imagery after the tools themselves disappeared. And yet, despite extensive study, no physical components, no bulbs, filaments, or wires have ever been found. No inscriptions describe their construction or use. Just the carvings. Silent. Ambiguous. Waiting. The crypt remains accessible to visitors, though many walk past without noticing the scene carved high above. It waits, as it has for centuries, half lit by flickers of flashlights, half lost in the dust of time. From the shadows of the Dendera temple, we now journey west, to a chamber deep inside a Mayan pyramid. There, on the lid of a king's tomb, lies a carving that has sparked wonder and confusion, a figure reclining in a strange, mechanical vessel, a pose far too familiar. The tomb of Pakal, astronaut pose or coincidence? Beneath the towering temple of the inscriptions in Palenque, Mexico, lies a stone sarcophagus unlike any other. Carved into its lid is an image that has puzzled archaeologists, theologians, and theorists alike. It depicts a man, eyes open, reclined at an angle, surrounded by complex mechanisms. His feet are poised on pedals. His hands grasp controls. His face tilts upward, as if gazing through a visor. To many, it resembles nothing less than a modern astronaut seated in the cockpit of a spacecraft. This is the final resting place of Kinich Janab Pakal, also known as Pakal the Great, a 7th century Maya ruler whose reign marked one of the most impressive eras in Maya history. His tomb was discovered in 1952 by Mexican archaeologist Alberto Rusluilier, buried deep within the pyramid and sealed for over a millennium. But it wasn't the body that captivated the world, it was the lid of his stone sarcophagus. Measuring nearly 4 meters in length, the lid is intricately carved with symbols, patterns, and the now famous central figure. Mainstream archaeologists interpret the scene as a religious depiction. Pakal, they say, is falling or descending into the underworld, Xibalba, along the world tree, a central axis in Maya cosmology. Above him are celestial bands and glyphs, representing the heavens. Below, the jaws of the underworld gape open, ready to receive the king. But not everyone agrees. In the 1960s, Swiss author Erich von Däniken introduced an alternative theory in his best-selling book Chariots of the Gods. He proposed that Pakal is not descending, but rather ascending, piloting a mechanical craft. To him, the so-called world tree behind the figure resembles a rocket plume. The glyphs are interpreted as instruments. The entire posture, reclined, concentrated, foot braced, hand on lever, is one of control and motion. And the headgear, the tubes, the posture. It's uncanny. Ancient astronaut theorists believe this could be a record of contact, an artistic attempt to depict a scene the Maya had witnessed but could not fully comprehend. If extraterrestrials had visited, they argue, the Maya may have immortalized their technology in stone, reinterpreting it through the lens of mythology and sacred meaning. The counterarguments are firm. Maya scholars maintain that the imagery aligns perfectly with their known belief systems. The so-called rocket exhaust is a stylized representation of the ceiba tree, connecting the heavens, earth, and underworld. The controls are ceremonial objects. The figure's posture is symbolic, reflecting transformation, not navigation. Still, the carving feels mechanical to many. Its symmetry, precision, and layered structure seem unlike other ritual art. And there are anomalies. The open eyes of a dead king, the strange gear-like motif surrounding his feet, the oddly technical design of the breathing tube leading from his nose. Why would the Maya, otherwise known for stylized and symbolic art, choose this moment, this burial, to create such a literal, detailed scene? Some believe the tomb itself holds clues. The Temple of the Inscriptions is not a simple pyramid. Its interior includes a long, narrow stairway sealed by stone slabs. The chamber below was filled with red cinnabar, mercury sulfide, possibly used in rituals or symbolic preservation. Mercury, as it happens, was also prized in ancient India and China for its reflective, mysterious properties, sometimes even associated with flight. Others point to Pakal's longevity. He ruled for nearly 70 years, an exceptionally long reign for the time. In his later depictions, he appears undead. His tomb contained jade masks and amulets meant to preserve his soul. The Maya believed kings could become gods. But what if the transformation they recorded was more literal? What if Pakal's final journey was not just spiritual, but technological? There is no direct evidence of machines or alien visitors buried within the tomb. No engines, no metals, no devices. Just stone, carefully carved, layered with meaning. But the image on that lid continues to defy simple explanation. Even skeptics admit it is one of the most unique, visually arresting images of the ancient world. And the debate endures. The rocket ship carving in Turkey, 7,000-year-old flight. In the rolling hills of southeastern Turkey, archaeologists have uncovered some of the oldest known remnants of human civilization. Among the stone tools, burial sites, and crumbling walls, one particular artifact stands apart, a small, ancient carving that seems completely out of place. Roughly 7,000 years old and etched into soft limestone, the relief depicts a figure seated in what appears to be a long, narrow capsule. The person is reclined, knees raised, arms positioned as if gripping controls. Beneath the capsule are shapes resembling fins, flames, or propulsion. The object tapers at one end, curving upward like the nose of a rocket. For some, it looks almost comical. For others, it is the most astonishing archaeological discovery in decades. To believers in ancient contact theories, the carving is nothing less than a representation of early flight, a prehistoric human witnessing, or perhaps experiencing, something far beyond the limits of his time. The notion that someone, 7,000 years ago, could even conceive of a vessel that lifts into the air is staggering. And yet, the form is there, aerodynamic, mechanical, and oddly familiar. The carving was first photographed in the mid-20th century, then archived and largely forgotten. It resurfaced in fringe literature and online forums, often cited without clear provenance. Some claim it originated near the city of Sanliurfa, not far from Göbekli Tepe. Others say it was found in an isolated cave, brought to light by shepherds who mistook it for a toy. What's undeniable is the detail. The figure wears what appears to be a helmet or head covering. Lines on the capsule suggest seams or panels. The flames, or what looks like them, flare symmetrically from the rear, giving the impression of movement. The object's shape is aerodynamic, almost engineered. Skeptics argue it's pure coincidence. The rocket could be a stylized boat, the figure part of a ritual scene, the entire shape nothing more than symbolic art misunderstood by modern minds. They emphasize that without proper archaeological context, the artifact's meaning remains speculative at best. But that context, or rather the lack of it, is what makes the carving so provocative. In the surrounding region, other anomalies have been discovered. Symbols resembling stars and celestial bodies, schematic-style engravings on clay, and references in Sumerian and Hittite mythologies to beings that descended from the sky in fiery chariots. These stories, preserved in fragments and songs, echo across cultures and millennia. Is it coincidence that a similar visual appears here, not in literature, but in stone? The idea that ancient people saw flight, not metaphorically, but literally, has been explored in various cultures. The Vimanas of India, the feathered serpents of Mesoamerica, the sky boats of Egypt. What links them is not just the concept of ascent, but the mechanical nature of the descriptions: engines, control rooms, fire, noise. Machinery, long before machines. Could this Turkish carving be one more piece of that scattered puzzle? Some researchers propose that it was a mimetic transmission, a memory passed down orally and visually for generations, finally recorded by a stonecutter who knew only the shape, not the purpose, of what he depicted. Others suggest it was more immediate, an eyewitness account, recorded in the only way possible for its time. There is no way to test the carving for functionality. It's not a blueprint. It offers no dimensions, no measurements, no written instructions. But what it offers is a shockingly clear visual, an image that does not belong in its time. Mainstream archaeologists caution against imposing modern interpretations onto ancient symbols. But even some among them admit, this one is strange. Its symmetry, its posture, its proportions, they're difficult to dismiss. Not definitive, but troubling. No other artifact from the same period displays such clarity of form or motion. If the carving is genuine, and there's no evidence to suggest forgery, it may stand alone as a message from an age we barely understand. From a forgotten rock face in Turkey, the image of a strange vessel, piloted by a helmeted figure, stares silently back at us. Whether metaphor or memory, it refuses to vanish. Now we turn to the jungles of Ecuador, where deep beneath the earth, rumors speak of a secret library, not of books, but of metal plates, stored in vast halls and lit by an unknown glow. The guardians? No one knows for sure. The Cave of the Tayos, metal library of the gods. Hidden beneath the dense Ecuadorian jungle, near the eastern foothills of the Andes, lies a network of underground tunnels known as the Cueva de los Tayos, the Cave of the Oilbirds. For centuries, this cave system was known only to the indigenous Shur people, who believed it to be sacred. But in the 20th century, whispers began to circulate, whispers not about birds or rituals, but about something far stranger. A library. Not one made of parchment or clay, but of metal plates, engraved with symbols and images no one could decipher. The rumors began in earnest when Juan Morich, an Argentine-Hungarian explorer, claimed in 1969 to have discovered a vast, artificial cavern deep inside the Tayos system. According to his report, the walls were cut with geometric precision, flat, smooth, and angular, as though shaped by machines. Inside, he claimed to find hundreds of metal books, arranged neatly on shelves, each plate covered in strange characters and diagrams. Morich insisted these artifacts weren't natural and weren't made by any known South American culture. He believed they had been left behind by an advanced ancient civilization, or perhaps even by visitors from beyond Earth. His claims caught the attention of none other than Erich von Däniken, author of Chariots of the Gods, who helped popularize the story worldwide. The idea of a metal library hidden in the jungle sparked intense fascination. Was it a record of forgotten knowledge? A vault of extraterrestrial data? A preserved message from the gods? In 1976, a major expedition was launched to investigate the cave, sponsored by the British and Ecuadorian governments, with support from the military. The team included scientists, engineers, professional cavers, and even a young Neil Armstrong, the first man to walk on the moon. His participation added an extra layer of intrigue. What interest did a former astronaut have in an Ecuadorian cave? Despite extensive exploration, the expedition failed to locate any metal books or artificial tunnels. They confirmed the presence of large natural caverns and limestone passages, but no evidence of advanced engineering or alien artifacts. The mainstream conclusion was clear: the cave was impressive, but entirely natural. Still, the testimonies didn't go away. The Shur people continued to speak of the library. Morich insisted that the team had been led away from the true location. Some claimed the real chamber was sealed, known only to select members of the tribe. Others believed it had already been emptied, its contents removed or hidden once the world took notice. Years later, another figure entered the story: Father Crespi, a missionary in the Ecuadorian city of Cuenca. Over decades, he had accumulated a vast collection of strange metal sheets, covered in carvings of animals, symbols, and even what appeared to be writing. Some resembled Sumerian, others Egyptian. He claimed the artifacts were given to him by locals who retrieved them from deep within the earth, possibly from the same cave system. After Crespi's death, much of his collection vanished. Some pieces were transferred to museums, others were lost or stolen. What remains is a set of grainy photographs and footage showing bizarre metallic plates unlike anything catalogued in conventional archaeology. To this day, no one has verified the location of the so-called metal library. Skeptics dismiss the story as a blend of exaggeration, hoax, and misinterpretation. They point out the lack of physical evidence and question the motives of those involved. But others see a different picture. Why would an explorer risk his reputation to promote a lie? Why did Armstrong, a figure known for caution and privacy, take part in such an obscure mission? Why were so many artifacts associated with the story quietly lost? For ancient astronaut theorists, the Cave of the Teos remains one of the strongest candidates for buried alien knowledge, a repository of advanced science and history stored in metal, hidden until the world is ready. If such a place truly exists, it may still lie untouched, protected by secrecy, nature, or perhaps by design. Now we turn to the windswept plateaus of Peru, where rock walls shaped like doorways sit in the middle of nowhere, silent and unmoving. But to those who know the legends, these are not doorways made for people, but for stars. The ancient portals of Peru, gateways to the stars. High in the Andes, surrounded by red rock and silent plains, stand mysterious stone structures carved into sheer cliffs. These are not buildings. They are not tombs, nor temples. They are doorways, massive, smooth, symmetrical. And yet they open to nothing. Behind them is only more stone. No passage, no chamber. Just a wall. One of the most striking examples lies near Lake Titicaca in southern Peru, a place the locals call Aramamuru. At first glance, it appears to be a flat-faced rock with a large rectangular niche carved into its surface. The niche is about 7 feet tall and shaped like a doorway. At its base, in the center, is a smaller, T-shaped depression, just large enough for a person to kneel and place their head. There are no inscriptions, no steps, no tools left behind. But there are legends. According to the indigenous Aymara people, this is not merely a rock formation, it is a puerta interdimensional, a gateway to the gods. The story goes that long ago, a priest of the Inca, fleeing from the Spanish conquest, carried with him a golden disc said to have fallen from the sky. He reached the portal, placed the disc into the depression, and the stone began to glow. A door opened. The priest stepped through, and was never seen again. That tale is just one among many. Locals still say that at certain times of day, especially at dawn and dusk, the surface of the rock shimmers with a blue light. Some report hearing humming sounds, or feeling vibrations when standing in the niche. Others speak of lights in the sky that seem to hover over the stone. The concept of portals or stargates is not unique to this location. Across Peru, and much of South America, similar door-like formations can be found: the door of the moon near Cusco, the gate of the sun in Bolivia's Tiwanaku, and strange isolated walls that seem intentionally carved, yet serve no known purpose. Many appear astronomically aligned, facing solstices, equinoxes, or major celestial events. Mainstream archaeologists suggest these formations were part of ceremonial or religious practices. The flat faces and door-like shapes may have symbolized passages to the spiritual world, or entrances for the souls of the dead. The niches may have held offerings, idols, or relics. But even with these interpretations, there remains no consensus on their exact age, function, or origin. For ancient alien theorists, the explanation is more direct. They believe these structures were not symbolic, they were functional. Portals in the literal sense. Points of contact between Earth and extraterrestrial civilizations. Perhaps even dimensional gateways used to traverse vast distances without ships. The golden disk, in this view, may have been a kind of key, an energy conductor or device used to activate the technology embedded within the stone. Supporters of this idea point to the lack of erosion on some of the surfaces, the precision of the carving, and the complete absence of debris or tool marks. If these were made with chisels and hammers, where are the remnants? If they were ceremonial, why are they so isolated, far from known settlements or paths? Satellite imagery reveals that many of these sites line up along so-called ley lines, hypothetical energy paths that crisscross the Earth and connect ancient monuments. Aramamuru, notably, sits near other mysterious locations like the Silastani Towers and the ruins at Puno. Could this be more than coincidence? Whether one believes in ancient technology or not, the feeling at Aramamuru is undeniable. The landscape is stark, quiet. The doorway seems to invite something, or someone. Pilgrims, tourists, and spiritual seekers still visit it today, often standing in the niche with eyes closed, hoping to feel something beyond explanation. But so far, no one has passed through and vanished. No portal has opened. The stone remains still. Yet the stories persist. Now we turn to Romania, where a metallic object, unearthed in ancient layers of earth, appears to belong not to any known era of human history, but to the future. The wedge of iod, advanced alloy before its time. In 1974, near the town of Iod in central Romania, construction workers digging along the banks of the Mureș River stumbled upon something deeply unusual. Embedded in a layer of sand and gravel, roughly 10 meters deep, they unearthed 3 distinct items: 2 large fossilized bones, later identified as belonging to an extinct species of mastodon, and a third, far more puzzling object. It was a small metallic wedge, heavily corroded, measuring about 20 centimeters long. At first glance, it looked like a mechanical component, perhaps part of an engine or a support bracket. It had flanges, a sloped edge, and what appeared to be a worn, machined surface. But its presence next to ancient animal remains raised a troubling question. How had something that looked modern ended up buried in a layer dated to be at least 11,000 years old? Romanian officials sent the object to be analyzed at the Institute for Research and Design. The results shocked them. The wedge was composed of an aluminum alloy, containing about 90% aluminum, along with copper, zinc, silicon, cadmium, and other trace elements. While these materials are common today, aluminum itself does not exist in pure form in nature and was not industrially produced until the 19th century. In fact, in the 1800s, aluminum was considered more precious than gold. The wedge of iod, if authentic, presented a technological paradox: an aluminum object appearing in a prehistoric geological layer, thousands of years before aluminum extraction was even imagined. Mainstream scholars quickly voiced skepticism. Some theorized that the object may have been misdated due to soil movement or contamination. Perhaps it had fallen into a fissure and become embedded among older fossils by accident. Others proposed it was merely a discarded piece of aircraft debris, maybe a part from a World War II German plane that crashed in the area, or an agricultural tool mistakenly left behind. But none of those explanations account for the significant corrosion and mineralization on the object. Experts noted that the patina on the wedge suggested it had been underground for centuries, if not millennia. The level of oxidation implied long-term exposure to the elements, not recent burial. Ancient alien theorists took the story further. They pointed to the wedge's aerodynamic shape, its resemblance to landing gear struts or mechanical stabilizers, and the advanced metallurgy. They speculated that the object could be a fragment of a spacecraft, perhaps jettisoned or discarded during an ancient landing. The presence of extinct bones nearby only added to the strangeness. Had the wedge been buried during a time when humans and mastodons walked the earth? Romania's own government seemed uncertain. For decades, the artifact was stored away, its location unclear. Some claimed it had been locked in the basement of a museum in Transylvania. Others said it had been sent abroad. For a time, the object simply vanished from public view, fueling rumors that it had been quietly confiscated or suppressed due to its implications. Eventually, the wedge of Iod reappeared, displayed at the Museum of History in Cluj-Napoca, accompanied by only a vague label and no definitive context. Skeptics continued to dismiss it. Proponents of the mystery continued to dig deeper. What makes the wedge so compelling is not just its material or appearance, but the way it aligns with other unexplained discoveries: metal artifacts found in coal seams, spark plugs embedded in ancient stone, spheres with grooved bands from Precambrian rock layers. The wedge of Iod fits into a broader pattern, one that suggests that the timeline of human technological development may not be as linear or isolated as we believe. If the wedge is genuine, and its age is even close to what the fossil evidence suggests, it would rewrite the history of metallurgy. If it's part of an aircraft, it belongs to a plane no one has identified. And if it is either a relic from neither man nor machine as we know them, then the implications are vast. From the riverside sands of Romania, where a metal wedge confounds explanation, we now turn to Peru, where strange stones etched with impossible scenes tell stories of science, surgery, and visitors from the stars. The Ica stones, human, dinosaurs, and aliens. In the arid desert region of southern Peru, not far from the Nazca Lines and the ancient city of Ica, lies one of the most controversial archaeological enigmas of the 20th century. It's not a structure. It's not a tomb. It's a collection of engraved stones, thousands of them, each bearing images that seem to defy history. They're known as the Ica stones, and their story begins with Dr. Javier Cabrera Darquilla, a respected Peruvian physician and professor, who received one of the stones as a birthday gift in the 1960s. The black andesite stone, smooth and oval, bore a strange carving, a figure of what looked like a human riding a dinosaur. Intrigued, Dr. Cabrera began collecting more. He traveled throughout the region, purchasing stones from local farmers and grave robbers, eventually amassing a collection of over 11,000 pieces. The images etched into them ranged from the merely curious to the utterly unbelievable. Some depicted humans coexisting with dinosaurs, riding them, taming them, even performing surgery on them. Others showed complex medical procedures, open heart transplants, brain operations, organ removals, with figures wielding tools of unknown design. There were scenes of celestial maps, what appeared to be telescopes, and even spacecraft-like objects hovering above the ground. One set showed beings in what looked like space suits, interacting with both humans and animals. The stones varied in size, some no larger than a fist, others weighing dozens of pounds. All were carved in deep relief, with scenes etched in a style unlike any known indigenous tradition. The patina on the grooves matched the natural weathering of the stone, suggesting age, but dating was difficult, as the stones were not discovered in controlled excavations. Most had been dug up informally, sold in markets, or handed down from generation to generation. Dr. Cabrera believed he had uncovered proof of a lost civilization, one that predated recorded history and possessed a level of scientific knowledge far beyond what historians accept. He proposed that these people may have come from another world, or at least been in contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. The stones, he said, were their library, a record of their achievements. Mainstream archaeologists rejected the claims outright. They argued that the stones were hoaxes, made by locals hoping to profit from gullible collectors. Some of the farmers even admitted to carving them using dental drills and old illustrations, saying they were simply giving buyers what they wanted. One man, Basilio Achuya, claimed to have made hundreds of the stones, though he later retracted and then reaffirmed his confession multiple times. But others weren't so easily convinced. If the stones were all fakes, why were some found buried deep in tombs, sealed and untouched? Why were certain symbols and anatomical depictions so accurate, beyond what even most educated people would have known at the time? And why were there so many? To fabricate over 10,000 engraved stones, each unique, would require an enormous and coordinated effort. Forgeries on that scale are rare, and rarely so consistent. Scientific attempts to test the stones were inconclusive. Some analyses suggested modern carving tools, while others could not rule out authenticity. Without clear stratigraphic context, the age of the engravings remains officially undetermined. For ancient alien theorists, however, the Ica stones are a goldmine of evidence. They argue that the carvings show advanced surgical techniques unknown to pre-Columbian cultures, as well as factual depictions of dinosaurs, complete with correct anatomical features that were only discovered by modern paleontology decades later. If ancient humans had no knowledge of such creatures, how could they have depicted them so accurately? One theory posits that an alien race shared their knowledge with a select group of humans, perhaps in Peru, long before history began. Another suggests that the Ica civilization was itself a hybrid creation, part terrestrial, part otherworldly. The stones, then, would be not only a record, but a warning, or a legacy. Despite criticism, Dr. Cabrera stood by his claims until his death. His home became the Ica Stone Museum, where he invited visitors to see the stones and make their own judgments. Even today, the collection remains open to the public, drawing a steady trickle of believers, skeptics, and the merely curious. Are the Ica stones an elaborate hoax? A misunderstood expression of lost mythology? Or the remnants of a forgotten chapter in human and cosmic history? From the dusty shelves of an unconventional museum in Peru, we now move to the rugged caves of Afghanistan, where a terrifying encounter between modern soldiers and something colossal would ignite one of the strangest modern myths of extraterrestrial contact. The Giant of Kandahar, military encounter with a non-human. In the desolate mountains of Afghanistan's Kandahar province, amid dry winds and sun-baked cliffs, a tale began to circulate among soldiers and internet forums in the early 2000s, one that blurred the line between myth, military secrecy, and the supernatural. It was the story of a battle not with insurgents, but with something far older and far less human. The account first appeared anonymously, allegedly from a member of the U.S. Special Forces. According to the story, a unit was dispatched on a routine mission into a remote canyon after losing contact with a reconnaissance team. What they found was something far from routine. As the soldiers moved cautiously through the rocky terrain, they spotted signs of a struggle, shredded equipment, pools of dried blood, and no bodies. Then, from the mouth of a cave, something emerged. It stood over 13 feet tall, humanoid in shape but grotesquely exaggerated. Its skin was leathery and sun-darkened. It had fiery red hair, a thick beard, and wore tattered garments made of animal hide. In its massive hand was a weapon, either a spear or a primitive blade, depending on the retelling. Its most disturbing feature? 6 fingers on each hand, and double rows of teeth glinting in the light. The creature reportedly moved with unnatural speed, impaling one of the soldiers instantly. The rest of the unit opened fire, unleashing a hail of bullets that lasted for 30 seconds or more. When the giant finally fell, the soldiers were stunned not just by the kill, but by the implications. They radioed for air support. A helicopter arrived to retrieve the body, which reportedly weighed over 1,100 pounds. It was flown to a remote base and disappeared from record. The soldiers were debriefed and warned never to speak of what they saw. But one did, and his version of the story ignited a storm of speculation. No official records of the incident exist. The Department of Defense denies the event ever took place. But the consistency of details across multiple versions has kept the legend alive. The 6 fingers, the red hair, the speed, the weapon, all repeat in testimony after testimony. Skeptics argue that the story is modern folklore, a myth born of war, stress, and isolation. Afghanistan's harsh landscape and ancient history are fertile ground for strange tales. They claim the giant could have been a misidentified tribal warrior, or even a hallucination brought on by fatigue. But believers see something more. They connect the Kandahar giant to legends of the Nephilim, giants mentioned in the Bible, said to be the offspring of divine beings and human women. These creatures were often described as violent, powerful, and unnatural. Some ancient texts, like the Book of Enoch, tell of them being buried deep within the earth after a great war. Could the mountains of Afghanistan hide such a prison? Others point to similar reports from other parts of the world, tales of tall, red-haired humanoids in Patagonia, cave-dwelling giants in North America, and ancient skeletons unearthed by early settlers that mysteriously vanished from museums. The pattern, they say, is too consistent to ignore. Adding fuel to the theory is the secrecy surrounding certain cave networks in Afghanistan. Some of these areas are off-limits, even to locals. And during military operations, entire regions were cordoned off for unknown reasons. Were these purely strategic decisions, or attempts to secure something buried deep within the rock? For those who believe in extraterrestrial involvement, the theory becomes even more compelling. They suggest the giant was not an ancient human, but a genetically engineered hybrid, left behind by an alien race. A sentinel, a relic, or perhaps a soldier from another age. Its strength, size, and biological anomalies support this idea. To this day, no photographic evidence of the creature has surfaced. But the legend persists, retold by soldiers, whispered in forums, and dissected by researchers of the unknown. From the mountains of Kandahar, where a red-haired colossus may have clashed with modern warriors, we move to the dawn of written history. In the land of Sumer, ancient tablets speak of gods who came not from heaven, but from the stars. The Anunnaki, visitors from the stars. Long before the rise of ancient Egypt, Greece, or Rome, a great civilization flourished in the land we now call Iraq. It was the cradle of civilization, Sumer, where humans first learned to write, build cities, and study the stars. And among the thousands of clay tablets unearthed from its ruins is a recurring name, etched again and again in cuneiform: Anunnaki. To mainstream scholars, the Anunnaki were simply deities, a pantheon of gods worshipped by the Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, and Babylonians. But to others, especially ancient astronaut theorists, they were not gods at all. They were extraterrestrial visitors who came to Earth in the distant past and altered the course of human history. According to the ancient texts, the Anunnaki descended from the heavens and brought with them knowledge, order, and law. They taught early humans agriculture, architecture, and astronomy. But the texts also speak of something stranger. They describe the Anunnaki fashioning humans from clay, mixed with the essence of the gods themselves, a genetic creation, not a natural evolution. One of the most provocative interpretations comes from Zacharias Sitchin, who spent decades translating and analyzing Sumerian texts. In his controversial books, Sitchin claimed that the Anunnaki came from a mysterious planet called Nibiru, on a long elliptical orbit around our sun. When they arrived on Earth, their goal was to mine gold, a resource they needed to stabilize their planet's atmosphere. Rather than do the hard labor themselves, they created a worker race, Homo sapiens. Early humans, according to this theory, were the product of genetic manipulation, a fusion of hominid DNA with that of the Anunnaki. The Garden of Eden? A metaphor for a laboratory. The Tree of Knowledge? A warning against human awakening. The myths seem to support fragments of this story. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, humans are said to have been created, destroyed, and recreated. There are tales of a great flood sent by the gods to wipe out humankind, only for a chosen survivor to be warned ahead of time and spared, an origin for the Noah narrative. The Anunnaki were also said to possess flying ships, radiant weapons, and the power to reshape the land. Some texts describe their cities, Eridu, Ur, Nippur, as places where sky boats came and went. The temples, called ziggurats, may have served not only religious purposes but possibly as landing pads or beacons for these celestial beings. Skeptics argue that this is all metaphor, that the Anunnaki myths are spiritual tales, not historical records, that interpreting ancient texts through a modern, technological lens leads to wild speculation. But certain anomalies remain hard to explain. Why did Sumer appear so suddenly and fully formed, with writing, law codes, mathematics, and astronomy, without a clear developmental path? Why do their records show knowledge of celestial bodies invisible to the naked eye, like the distant planet Pluto? Why are their gods so often associated with stars, wings, and travel? And perhaps most curious of all, why do so many ancient cultures, in Egypt, in Mesoamerica, in India, all share similar stories of sky gods, who came down, interbred with humans, and ruled over them with knowledge and fire? Whether the Anunnaki were actual beings or symbolic representations of something greater, their legacy endures. They are carved into stone, pressed into tablets, whispered through time. Some believe they never left. Others say they will return when the time is right, when Nibiru circles close again. From the baked mud cities of ancient Sumer, where gods may have walked as men, we now move to a dense jungle in Mesoamerica. There, on a lonely temple wall, a small carving stares out, not of a king or animal, but of something else entirely, something uncannily familiar. The alien head, carving at Palenque, message in stone. In the heart of the Chiapas jungle in southern Mexico lies the ancient Maya city of Palenque, a place of towering temples, enigmatic inscriptions, and engineering marvels. Among its many wonders is the Temple of the Inscriptions, the final resting place of the great ruler Pacal the Great. It is here that archaeologists uncovered some of the most finely detailed Maya glyphs and carvings ever found. But beyond the grandeur of Pacal's tomb lies a far more puzzling detail, a small, easily overlooked carving, partially eroded and tucked away on the side of a stone panel. It's not part of a major mural or ceremonial scene. It isn't accompanied by traditional Maya iconography. Instead, it appears almost isolated, a lone face, deeply recessed and stylized in a way that defies context. To the trained eye of a historian, it might resemble a mask or an abstract deity. But to countless others, especially those familiar with modern alien iconography, it's immediately recognizable: a large, bulbous head, oversized eyes, and a narrow chin. The proportions are eerily similar to what pop culture defines as a gray alien. The carving has come to be known as the alien head of Palenque, and though it's small, barely the size of a dinner plate, it's caused a massive ripple among those who study ancient astronaut theory. It's not the only one of its kind. Similar humanoid faces have been found throughout Mesoamerica, often buried in rubble or etched into the margins of larger works. But this one stands out for its symmetry, proportion, and unmistakable resemblance to something extraterrestrial. Skeptics, of course, offer alternative explanations. Some suggest it's merely a ceremonial mask, perhaps depicting a deity or underworld figure. Others say erosion and time have altered its original appearance, creating the illusion of an alien face where none existed. To them, the resemblance is coincidence, nothing more. But for ancient alien theorists, the carving is a deliberate message, a portrait of a being who visited, or even guided, the Maya. Supporters of the theory point out that the Maya were deeply focused on the stars. Their calendar systems, architecture, and religious rituals were all intertwined with astronomical cycles. Their temples aligned with solstices and planetary movements. They believed their gods came from the heavens, riding fiery serpents, or descending through cosmic portals. Could it be that those gods were actual beings, not metaphorical, but literal, who were once present and honored in stone? The carving at Palenque becomes even more curious when seen in the broader context of Maya art and myth. Other stele and bas-reliefs depict humans in apparent communication with taller, more elaborate figures, some wearing helmets, with unusual features and equipment strapped to their bodies. Some scenes even show floating, serpent boats, carrying figures through the sky. Was this symbolism? Or was it a visual record of encounters long forgotten? Another provocative angle is the proximity of this carving to the lid of Pakal's sarcophagus, which itself has long been interpreted as depicting the king piloting a spacecraft. While mainstream archaeologists interpret the sarcophagus lid as a stylized image of Pakal falling into the underworld tree of life, ancient astronaut proponents argue that the surrounding context, the alien-like carving, the sky motifs, and the advanced astronomy, strengthens the idea of something beyond myth. Some researchers have even suggested that the carving is not Maya in origin at all, that it was placed deliberately and secretly, perhaps as a modern insertion or ancient relic uncovered and reset. But no evidence has emerged to prove this, and the carving remains officially catalogued as authentic and contemporaneous with the surrounding stonework. Ultimately, the alien head at Palenque may never be fully explained. It could be a mask. It could be art. Or it could be a forgotten face from the stars, immortalized in limestone and left as a quiet marker among the temples and tombs. Now we move from a stone face to an entire figure, etched high in the Alps, thousands of years ago. A helmeted being stares across time, tools in hand, as if observing a world not his own. The helmeted god of Valcamonica, time traveler or visitor. Nestled in the rugged landscape of northern Italy lies Valcamonica, a vast alpine valley stretching more than 90 kilometers. For thousands of years, its rocky surfaces have been etched with images, over 140,000 petroglyphs carved into stone by generations of ancient inhabitants. This immense outdoor gallery, one of the largest in Europe, depicts a sweeping range of human experience, hunting scenes, religious rituals, tools, celestial symbols. But among these carvings, scattered across boulders and cliff faces, are a few images that break entirely from the expected. Etched deep into the stone are humanoid figures with round helmets, visors, and what appear to be mechanical suits, as if someone thousands of years ago saw something impossible and recorded it the only way they could. One figure, known to researchers as the astronaut of Valcamonica, stands with both arms outstretched. It wears a large, rounded helmet, complete with a central face shield. Its body is bulky and segmented, like it's wearing a thick, pressurized suit. In both hands it holds what could be interpreted as tools, weapons, or some form of equipment. Around it, strange symbols and abstract lines hint at a context that is long lost. The carving is estimated to be between 8,000 and 10,000 years old. Mainstream archaeologists interpret the image differently. They suggest that these helmeted figures might represent ritual masks, part of shamanic or ceremonial traditions. The lines surrounding the heads could symbolize energy or divine presence, not glass visors or breathing tubes. The strange shapes in their hands might be agricultural tools or symbolic items, not advanced instruments. But ancient alien theorists see something else entirely. They argue that these images are visual records, desperate attempts by prehistoric people to document what they witnessed. If a being in a spacesuit stood before a Stone Age tribe, how would they preserve that memory? Lacking writing or sophisticated tools, they would carve it into rock, in a place sacred and permanent. The helmeted gods of Valcamonica are not isolated. Similar figures have been found in Algeria's Tassili Eniger, in Bolivia's Tiwanaku, and even in Australia's Wandjina rock art. All depict large-headed beings with smooth, featureless faces and unusual postures, visually distinct from human figures in the same art. Could these be visitors from elsewhere, appearing across cultures and continents, always remembered the same way? Adding to the mystery is the astronomical sophistication of prehistoric Europeans. Stone circles and megalithic structures aligned to solstices and star paths dot the landscape across the region. These people observe the skies with devotion and accuracy, yet images like the Valcamonica, astronaut, don't seem to fit their known mythologies. It's not a sun god, nor an animal spirit. It is something other. The tools in the figure's hands have also sparked debate. Some resemble ray guns, others handheld devices, unlike anything else in early European art. One carving shows a figure with lines shooting from its head and hands, as if emitting light or force. Skeptics remain firm. These are symbols, not sightings. Stylized art, not sci-fi. They argue that to project modern technology onto ancient carvings is a dangerous distortion of historical context. But even the most cautious researchers admit, these figures are unusual, and no definitive explanation has ever satisfied all questions. One lingering detail adds to the puzzle. The rock panels with these, helmeted, beings are found in high, difficult-to-reach areas, places that may have been chosen deliberately. Were they sacred sites? Points of arrival? Or simply where the witnesses felt safest recording something others might not believe? No artifacts have been found to support the idea of physical technology. But perhaps the stone was the only tool the ancients needed, a permanent canvas to cry out to the future. From a windswept valley where a carved face stares blankly across millennia, we journey east to the hills of Bosnia. There, beneath layers of earth and grass, strange pyramidal shapes rise, shapes that may not be natural at all. The Bosnian pyramids, built with otherworldly precision. In the quiet town of Visoko, Bosnia and Herzegovina, a series of forested hills rise above the surrounding valley. At first glance, they appear natural, lush green slopes, birdsong in the air, scattered ruins from medieval times. But one of these hills, now called the Pyramid of the Sun, has become the center of one of the most controversial archaeological claims in modern history. In 2005, Dr. Samir Osmanagic, a Bosnian-American researcher, announced that these hills were not hills at all, but man-made pyramids, larger and older than anything found in Egypt or Mesoamerica. The claims sent shockwaves through both the scientific community and the world of ancient mysteries. The largest of the alleged structures, the Pyramid of the Sun, stands over 720 feet, 220 meters, tall, significantly taller than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Osmanagic and his team claimed that beneath the layers of soil and vegetation lay a massive artificial structure, with geometrically precise sides, aligned almost perfectly with the cardinal directions. Soon, additional pyramids were identified nearby, the Pyramid of the Moon, Pyramid of the Dragon, and others, forming a layout some said mirrored ancient constellations. But what truly ignited global curiosity were not just the shapes, but the properties said to be detected in and around them. Researchers claimed that instruments picked up a beam of electromagnetic energy shooting straight out of the top of the Pyramid of the Sun, narrow, consistent, and measurable at 28 kHz. Even more intriguing was the report of ultrasound emissions, in the range of 33 to 42 kHz, emanating from the top of the pyramid, with fluctuating patterns that suggested intelligent modulation. Inside the complex, a series of underground tunnels, called RAM, were found stretching for miles, built with dry masonry and containing large megalithic stones. Some of these stones appeared to be inscribed with symbols or carvings, and many emitted unusually high levels of negative ions, which some researchers associated with healing properties. These phenomena led to speculation that the site was not only ancient, but had been constructed with advanced knowledge of energy, sound, and earth resonance, technologies far beyond what mainstream history attributes to ancient Balkan peoples. Critics from the global archaeological community were quick to dismiss the claims. They argued that the hills were entirely natural formations, flat irons shaped by millions of years of tectonic activity and erosion. They accused Osmanagic of pseudoscience and sensationalism. UNESCO and the Bosnian government distanced themselves from the project. But visitors and independent researchers continued to report anomalies, perfectly cut stone blocks, unusual temperature gradients, and a pervasive sense of precision in the design of the tunnels. Some even claimed to feel better physically after spending time inside. So, the question lingers, if these structures are natural, why do they appear so symmetrical? Why do their sides align so precisely with Earth's cardinal points? And how can we explain the energy anomalies repeatedly recorded there? Supporters of ancient astronaut theory offer a bold explanation. They believe the Bosnian pyramids were constructed by an advanced civilization, either guided by or composed of extraterrestrial intelligences, thousands of years ago, perhaps as early as 12,000 BC. The pyramids, in this view, served not as tombs, but as power generators, communication hubs, or resonance amplifiers, tapping into Earth's natural energies. Even the name of the location, Visoko, meaning high place, seems to echo the elevated purpose such structures might have had. Despite heavy criticism, excavations continue. Volunteers from around the world dig in the tunnels, study the formations, and search for new clues. The site has become a pilgrimage destination for believers in ancient knowledge and lost civilizations. What lies beneath the hills of Bosnia may still be debated. But whether they are natural or artificial, misunderstood or misrepresented, they have become a focal point in the global conversation about what we truly know of our past, and what remains hidden beneath our feet. From the mysterious slopes of the Balkans, we now move south to Egypt, where a ceiling carved with stars may hold a blueprint of the cosmos, etched in stone thousands of years before telescopes ever existed. The star map ceiling of Dendera, chart of the cosmos. Deep in Upper Egypt, on the west bank of the Nile, stands the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, one of the best preserved temple complexes of the ancient world. Its pillars remain strong, its carvings crisp. But it is what lies above that has fascinated and puzzled visitors for generations. A massive stone ceiling carved with celestial symbols so precise, so unusual, that some believe it may be a chart of the cosmos itself. At the center of this mystery is the Dendera zodiac, a circular relief located in one of the temple's chapels. Unlike typical Egyptian astronomical art, usually flat and symbolic, this ceiling presents constellations in 3 dimensions, arranged in concentric rings. Taurus, Pisces, Leo, Orion, and the Big Dipper are all clearly identifiable. Surrounding them are figures of gods, animals, and celestial boats. What's especially striking is the accuracy of the celestial placements. Some researchers believe the chart depicts the night sky as it would have appeared thousands of years ago, possibly even marking the beginning of the age of Pisces, around 100 BC. Others go further, claiming that the star positions match sky configurations from 10,000 BC or earlier, long before Egyptian civilization officially began. Ancient astronaut theorists see the Dendera ceiling not as mere myth or religious imagery, but as a scientific diagram, a precise record of astronomical knowledge passed down from beings far more advanced than the people who carved it. They ask, how did the temple priests know the layout of constellations invisible to the naked eye? Why include so many figures from distant parts of the sky, well beyond the seasonal horizon of Egypt? And most curiously, why does the design look so much like modern star maps, with radial symmetry and structured layering? The mainstream explanation is that the Dendera zodiac represents a symbolic sky, used for astrological purposes and royal rituals. It may have been a tool to calculate the passage of time or the positioning of certain festivals. But even many traditional Egyptologists admit that the piece is unique in Egyptian art, and that it stands apart from anything found in Thebes, Karnak, or Luxor. The original Dendera zodiac, now housed in the Louvre Museum in Paris, was removed by French explorers in the 1800s. A plaster replica remains in the temple today. But even removed from its original context, the carving continues to raise questions. Some parts of the relief suggest knowledge of precession, the slow wobble of Earth's rotational axis that takes over 25,000 years to complete a full cycle. This phenomenon wasn't officially discovered until the time of Hipparchus in 150 BC, and yet the positioning of constellations in Dendera hints at an awareness of that cosmic drift thousands of years earlier. Adding to the mystery are the surrounding temple structures. The Temple of Hathor contains not just the zodiac, but a series of bas-reliefs, crypts, and symbolic motifs often interpreted as depicting electrical devices or scientific instruments. Whether these interpretations are accurate or exaggerated, they contribute to the growing sense that Dendera was more than a religious center, perhaps also a repository of ancient knowledge. Was the ceiling a teaching tool? A memorial to star beings? A coded message left for future civilizations to decipher? If ancient travelers from the stars once visited Earth, as some believe, the Dendera zodiac might be their skyward fingerprint, a cosmic map pointing not just to where we are, but to where they came from. Now we turn from Egypt's celestial carvings to the arid plains of central Mexico, where a line of ancient stone warriors may be hiding more than ceremonial pride, perhaps hiding their true origins behind masks of the gods. The sky god, masks of Tula, extraterrestrial visors. Rising from the sun-scorched plateau of Hidalgo, Mexico, the ancient city of Tula, once the capital of the Toltec civilization, stands in enigmatic silence. Its weathered ruins tell of a powerful warrior culture, famed for artistry, architecture, and influence that stretched far beyond its time. But towering above all else in the site's ceremonial heart are four figures that command awe, debate, and endless speculation: the Atlantean statues. Each stands over 15 feet tall, carved from basalt, and mounted atop the temple of Tlahuizcalpantecutli, dedicated to the morning star. These monolithic warriors bear rigid postures and stoic faces. But what draws attention, again and again, is what they wear. Slung across their chests and strapped to their backs are objects that look strikingly like high-tech gear: complex breastplates, cylindrical devices, arm-mounted boxes, and in particular, masks or helmets that bear uncanny resemblance to modern visors or breathing apparatuses. To ancient astronaut theorists, these are not mere ceremonial masks. They are representations of advanced technology, worn by beings not of this world, sky gods who once walked among the Toltecs. The warriors' faces are expressionless, framed by rigid bands and headgear, with wide, unblinking eyes that resemble protective lenses. Around their necks hang devices some interpret as life support systems or communication tools. On their backs, tubes and containers mimic the design of oxygen tanks or propulsion units. Skeptics, of course, offer alternative interpretations. To them, the figures represent elite Toltec warriors, armed and armored in the best gear their civilization could craft. The chest plates? Perhaps shields. The back units? Maybe quivers or storage pouches. The masks? Ritualistic adornments tied to their role as guardians of the gods. Yet the mystery deepens when these statues are viewed in a wider context. The Toltecs revered Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent deity often associated with wisdom, the sky, and celestial descent. Many legends describe Quetzalcoatl as a white-skinned, bearded figure who arrived from the stars, bringing knowledge before eventually departing eastward, promising to return. Was this merely myth? Or could it be a memory of a visitation? Further comparisons add fuel to the theory. Across the world, ancient cultures depicted gods with strange headgear, from the helmeted figures in Valcamonica to the bulbous-headed beings in Australian rock art. The consistency in design motifs across cultures separated by oceans and millennia raises the question: were these civilizations all drawing from the same source? At Tula, the alignment of the temple and statues also carries possible meaning. Some researchers suggest the layout echoes astronomical positions, possibly linking the warriors to specific star systems. Others point to symbolic associations with Orion, a constellation often connected to deities and myths of descent. Still, the Toltec disappearance remains a puzzle. Little is known about how this once great civilization faded. Could these statues be more than cultural remnants, silent sentinels, preserving a visual memory of visitors who once came from above? To believers, the Atlantean warriors are evidence in stone, not of gods imagined, but of beings encountered. Beings remembered as mighty, sky-dwelling protectors. Their masks were not symbolic. They were essential. Their visors were not ceremonial. They were functional. And though time has erased their language and their names, these four monoliths still stand, staring eastward as if awaiting the return of someone, or something, they once served. From the masked guardians of the morning star, we descend once more into Palenque. But this time, not to gaze at a face or a carving. This time, we enter a tomb built on a giant scale, so large, so precise, it raises one chilling question: who was it really made for? The 8-foot-tall sarcophagus of Palenque, made for a giant. Deep beneath the Temple of the Inscriptions in Palenque, Mexico, archaeologists uncovered one of the most significant tombs in Mesoamerican history, the resting place of Kinich Janab Pacal, a powerful Maya ruler who reigned for nearly 70 years. But while the discovery of Pacal's tomb in 1952 stunned the archaeological world, it was the sarcophagus itself, massive, ornate, and seemingly oversized, that continues to baffle researchers and inspire theories far beyond the academic realm. Carved from a single stone and placed in a chamber deep underground, the sarcophagus lid alone weighs more than 5 tons, and its dimensions are imposing, nearly 12 feet long, 7 feet wide, and over 3 feet tall. The total height of the stone box reaches about 8 feet, towering well above the average height of ancient Maya individuals. To the orthodox explanation, this is grandeur, royalty demanding a grand resting place. But others look at the scale and ask a more provocative question: was this sarcophagus really meant for a human of ordinary size? Or was it made for someone, or something, much larger? According to the official excavation reports, Pacal's remains were found inside, and his height was estimated at approximately 5 feet 6 inches. That leaves a considerable amount of unused space within the tomb. The body was surrounded by rich jade adornments, including his iconic funerary mask, but the sheer disproportion between the occupant and the container has led many to suspect there's more to the story. Some suggest the sarcophagus may not have been originally intended for Pacal at all, that he was interred later, repurposing an older structure built for a different being entirely. Ancient alien theorists take this further, pointing to the possibility that the tomb was constructed for a literal giant, a non-human figure, perhaps one of the Anunnaki or an extraterrestrial visitor remembered as a god. The theories gain traction when considering the imagery carved on the lid of the sarcophagus. Often referred to as the Maya astronaut, the image shows Pacal reclining in what looks like a seated position, surrounded by complex machinery. To mainstream scholars, the scene represents the World Tree and Pacal's descent into the underworld. But to others, it shows him piloting a spacecraft, complete with foot pedals, exhaust flames, hand controls, and a breathing apparatus. Combine that with the oversized scale of the stone container, and the narrative becomes irresistible. Was Pakal part of a lineage tied to otherworldly beings? Was the sarcophagus designed to honor, or house, something not quite human? Supporters of the ancient astronaut theory point out that giants are referenced across Mesoamerican myths. Stories of tall, powerful beings abound in Aztec, Maya, and Olmec lore. They were often described as bringers of knowledge, or threats to human civilization. Could one of these figures have once occupied the tomb, long before Pakal's time? There's also the question of the engineering feat required to build and position such a monolithic sarcophagus. Without wheels or iron tools, how did the Maya carve, transport, and lower the massive stone into an underground chamber, navigating narrow staircases and precise corridors, without modern equipment? Some believe the answer lies in lost techniques or external assistance, perhaps knowledge handed down from visitors who understood energy, gravity, and stonework in ways we still struggle to replicate. Skeptics argue that size alone doesn't prove anything. Ancient Egyptians, too, built oversized sarcophagi for symbolic reasons. But Palenque's tomb is singular in Mesoamerica. Nothing else in the region compares to its scale, craftsmanship, and mystique. Whether a final resting place for a king or a monument to something far older and stranger, the sarcophagus of Palenque continues to defy simple explanation. Its carved lid draws the eye. Its size challenges logic. And its story remains unfinished. Now we turn from stone to spiral, where a lonely rock panel etched high on a butte in New Mexico appears to mark not just the passing of time, but messages from the stars themselves. The interstellar message at Fajada Butte, petroglyph code. Rising abruptly from the arid landscape of Chaco Canyon, New Mexico, stands a solitary sandstone formation known as Fajada Butte. Towering nearly 400 feet above the canyon floor, this isolated mesa has long drawn the attention of archaeologists, astronomers, and spiritual seekers. For the ancient ancestral Puebloans, who built the vast Chacoan civilization over 1,000 years ago, Fajada Butte was more than a landmark. It was a sacred site, a point of celestial focus. And on one of its narrow ledges lies a carving that may hold one of the most enigmatic messages in the ancient world. Etched into the rock wall behind 3 carefully placed sandstone slabs are a pair of spiral petroglyphs. At first glance, they seem like simple rock art, abstract symbols with religious or ceremonial significance. But in the late 1970s, researcher Anna Sofar noticed something extraordinary. As sunlight filtered through the slabs, daggers of light pierced the spirals in precise patterns. On the summer solstice, a single dagger sliced through the center of the large spiral. On the winter solstice, 2 daggers framed it perfectly. The carvings, she realized, were not just decorative, they were a solar calendar. But that was only the beginning. Further studies suggested that the spirals also marked lunar standstills, equinoxes, and eclipses, tracking complex celestial events with accuracy rivaling that of ancient Babylon or Egypt. For a culture without telescopes or clocks, this level of astronomical precision was remarkable. It implied not only observation but intent, a deep understanding of time, cycles, and cosmic alignment. To mainstream archaeologists, this sun dagger site is a masterpiece of archaeoastronomy, a brilliant fusion of art, architecture, and celestial tracking. But to ancient alien theorists, the carvings are something more, a code carved not just to follow time, but to send a message across it. They point to the universal language of mathematics and astronomy, the very same principles used in modern attempts to communicate with extraterrestrial life, such as the Arecibo message or the Voyager Golden Record. Spirals, in particular, appear again and again in nature and cosmic structures, from galaxies to DNA. Could the symbols on Fujata Butte represent a kind of interstellar message, intended to be understood by intelligences far beyond Earth? Even the method of encoding, light passing through stone, feels intentional. A signal that only appears at certain times, requiring knowledge of solar behavior, shadow geometry, and cosmic cycles. It's not unlike a celestial lock, revealing information only when the heavens align just so. The location also adds intrigue. Chaco Canyon itself is filled with roads, buildings, and alignments that suggest a larger, interconnected plan, as if the entire city was constructed as a terrestrial reflection of the sky. From above, it resembles a map, a layout beyond utility. The alignment of structures to solstices, lunar standstills, and cardinal directions implies knowledge not expected of a Stone Age culture. Skeptics argue that this is reading too much into natural beauty. That the spirals were simply spiritual, not scientific. That the slabs shifted over time, making the light dagger effects accidental. And yet, no other petroglyph in the region behaves like this. No random carving aligns so precisely with multiple celestial events. Ancient astronaut theorists speculate that the spirals might represent data, encoded information about planetary movement, energy fields, or even interstellar navigation. Others believe the site is a receiver, not a message, designed to interact with signals or energies we no longer understand. Regardless of interpretation, the mystery remains: who first carved the spirals on Fujata Butte? How did they align them so precisely with the movements of the sun and moon? And why here, at a site so remote, so high, so deliberately hidden? Today, access to the site is restricted, in part to preserve the fragile sandstone, but also to protect what many consider a living relic of cosmic communication. Visitors to Chaco Canyon can only gaze at Fujata Butte from a distance, wondering what secrets the ancient spirals still guard. From the sun-scorched rocks of New Mexico, we turn our gaze back across the Atlantic, to a land of rolling hills and buried enigmas. There, among the mist and legend, lies a crop of strange, circular formations, messages perhaps not carved in stone, but grown from the earth itself. The crop circles, hoaxes, patterns, or alien warnings. In the soft, golden fields of southern England, particularly in Wiltshire, where the shadows of Stonehenge stretch across the land, something strange has unfolded for decades. Perfectly geometric patterns, often appearing overnight, pressed into crops with breathtaking precision. Known as crop circles, these designs have sparked debates, inspired fear, and ignited imaginations around the world. Some call them elaborate hoaxes. Others believe they are coded messages, perhaps warnings, from intelligences far beyond our own. The modern phenomenon of crop circles began in the late 1970s, but scattered reports and illustrations date back centuries. Early sightings described simple circles. But as the decades passed, the formations grew increasingly complex: fractals, mandalas, mathematical symbols, and astronomical alignments spanning hundreds of feet, with an elegance no random act could produce. These aren't just flattened patches of wheat. The stalks are bent, not broken, often woven into intricate spirals. Some exhibit signs of microwave radiation or heat exposure, causing the nodes in the stalks to expand and bubble, phenomena difficult to replicate with planks and rope. Compasses fail, electromagnetic readings spike, and eyewitnesses report strange lights or orbs hovering just before a formation appears. Skeptics point to well-documented cases of human circlemakers, many of whom have demonstrated their ability to create sophisticated designs overnight using basic tools. Artists like Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley, who came forward in the 1990s, claimed responsibility for numerous early circles. Since then, crop circle tourism and competition have driven ever more complex patterns. But not all formations are so easily explained. In 2001, a formation appeared in Chilbolton, adjacent to a radio telescope. It mimicked the 1974 Arecibo message, a binary radio transmission sent to the stars by scientists hoping to reach extraterrestrial life. The crop formation presented a modified version of the same message, seemingly responding with a different DNA structure, an altered solar system, and an alien-like figure. It was followed shortly by another formation depicting a face rendered in halftone dot matrix, as if printed by an enormous machine. The precision was stunning. The scale, near perfect. No footprints, no vehicles, no evidence of human interference. Satellite images and ground analysis revealed no conventional explanation. The question lingers, could such messages be genuine attempts at contact? Why would advanced intelligences use crops? Perhaps it's the subtlety, a non-disruptive, non-invasive form of communication using natural media. Maybe it's a test, a language of shapes and ratios meant for those paying attention. Some crop circle designs mimic sacred geometry, embedding ratios like the Fibonacci sequence or golden spiral, patterns that appear throughout nature and art, and some argue, throughout the cosmos. Others align with celestial bodies, ley lines, or ancient sacred sites, suggesting a deeper awareness of Earth's energetic grid. Scientists remain divided. A 1991 survey of plants from crop circles found structural anomalies in the affected stalks, including elongated nodes and expulsion cavities. Soil samples revealed magnetic particles fused into glassy nodules, as if subjected to brief, intense heat. Still, no peer-reviewed study has confirmed a definitive cause outside human action. The media often focus on proven hoaxes, ignoring the unresolved formations that defy simple explanation. A few former skeptics, after visiting the sites themselves, admit that something unexplainable lingers in the silence of those patterns, a presence, or perhaps a purpose, yet to be understood. Are we being watched? Tested? Or warned? The crop circles, whether born of mischief, mystery, or something beyond, continue to appear, each one fleeting, fragile, and silent. Written not in stone, but in stalks. Visible only until the next harvest. The UFO paintings of Renaissance art, divine visions or alien encounters. In the quiet halls of European cathedrals and museums, surrounded by gold-framed depictions of saints and angels, a few paintings whisper a strange and persistent anomaly. Among familiar religious imagery, Madonnas, crucifixions, annunciations, there exist shapes that do not belong. Metallic, rounded, glowing. Some hovering in the sky, others beaming light onto the figures below. These are not doves, halos, or clouds. They are what today's eye might instantly recognize as UFOs. Take, for instance, the Madonna with Saint Giovannino, painted in the 15th century by an artist from the school of Filippo Lippi. In the background sky, just above the Virgin's left shoulder, floats a small, dark, disc-shaped object. It isn't vague or hidden, it is deliberate. Below it, a man stands shielding his eyes, staring upward at the hovering shape. Nearby, a dog barks toward the same object. The painter made no attempt to disguise it, yet its meaning remains unspoken. Then there is the Baptism of Christ, created in 1710 by Ert de Gelder. Above the baptismal scene, rays of light poured down from a circular craft hovering in the clouds. Not a star, not a symbolic dove, a full-bodied metallic object, textured, symmetrical, casting beams like a modern spotlight. It is hard to dismiss as a metaphor. In The Crucifixion, a 14th-century fresco in the Visoki Dikanai monastery in Kosovo, two unusual flying crafts are tucked into the upper corners. Each contains a human figure, appearing to control the vessel, with expressions and postures that suggest motion and intent. The forms resemble capsules, complete with visible flames or propulsion emanating from the rear. These are not isolated incidents. Throughout the Renaissance and early modern period, other paintings depict strange aerial discs, tubes, or wheels. In some, beams of light shoot down from these shapes, touching figures on earth. In others, they appear in the presence of holy events, annunciations, ascensions, even resurrections. The question that has lingered through centuries: why were these included? Some art historians argue the objects are merely symbolic, interpretations of divine light, heavenly signs, or stylized clouds. Indeed, medieval and Renaissance artists often worked from religious texts and iconographic traditions, where celestial symbols played a major role. But the detail and consistency of these shapes trouble that explanation. They are not hazy or abstract. They are structured, shaped, and often metallic-looking. In some, the light sources they emit follow rules of perspective and shadow, suggesting they are intended as real, physical objects. There are also contextual oddities. The artists did not typically write about these shapes. No surviving letters or journals explain their purpose. Many of the objects were not widely noticed until modern researchers began cataloging them with the rise of the UFO phenomenon in the 20th century. This raises a tantalizing possibility. Were these depictions based on sightings? Or on oral accounts passed down from earlier generations? The 15th and 16th centuries were not devoid of skywatching. Records exist from that era of strange objects seen in the heavens, some interpreted as omens, others feared as divine punishment or celestial battles. In Nuremberg, 1561, and Basel, 1566, printed broadsheets described mass sightings of cylindrical and spherical shapes in the sky, sometimes emitting fire, sometimes clashing in midair. These were recorded in woodcuts and described with the language available at the time. Suns, crosses, fiery wheels. What if some artists, either first-hand or through local accounts, chose to quietly insert these experiences into their paintings, not as public declarations, but as subtle acknowledgments? Ancient alien theorists suggest that these paintings offer visual continuity, evidence that sightings of unknown aerial phenomena did not begin with Roswell or modern aviation, but stretched back through centuries. The placement of these objects alongside divine or miraculous events may not have been coincidence, they argue, but deliberate associations between the visitors in the sky and the gods of human religion. This theory raises deeper implications. If the divine figures of ancient texts, angels descending in beams of light, fiery chariots rising into the heavens, wheels within wheels, were in fact early encounters with non-human technology, then these Renaissance artists may have preserved glimpses of that truth, masked in religious allegory. Still, the debate remains open. Skeptics caution against retrofitting modern ideas onto historical art. They remind us that interpretation is a lens colored by culture, and what we see as a UFO may have once been seen as a holy vision, nothing more. Yet the images persist, unaltered, undeniable. Painted with care, framed in gold, hanging silently for centuries in churches and museums, waiting to be noticed. Now we turn from painted skies to stone discs, artifacts not of brush and canvas, but carved and etched, discovered deep in the mountains of China. Discs that carry strange markings and tell a story not of visions, but of visitors. The Dropa stones, ancient discs from the stars. High in the mist-shrouded peaks of the Biancarula Mountains, straddling the remote borderlands between Tibet and China, a team of Chinese archaeologists embarked on an expedition in 1938. Their mission: to explore a series of mysterious, man-made caves deep within this largely untouched terrain. What they found would ignite one of the most controversial and enduring mysteries of the 20th century. A series of strange, circular stone discs that seemed to whisper of a forgotten chapter in human history. Inside the caves, expedition leader Chipu Ti and his team discovered rows of tiny skeletal remains, no more than 4 feet tall, with unusually large skulls and frail bodies. Buried among them were hundreds of carved stone discs, each approximately 1 foot in diameter, with a central hole and grooves spiraling outward like the pattern of a phonograph record. These objects became known as the Dropa stones. Initially dismissed as ceremonial items or primitive art, the stones remained in obscurity until a decade later, when Chinese linguist and Professor Samam Nui allegedly began studying the spiral grooves in detail. What he claimed to have found sent shockwaves through the few who dared listen. According to reports, the spirals weren't decorative at all, but a form of microscopic writing, so small it could only be deciphered using magnification. After years of painstaking analysis, Samam Nui declared that the grooves recorded the tale of a non-human race, the Dropa, who crash-landed on Earth thousands of years ago. The story, as translated, told of space-faring beings whose ship became stranded in the mountains. Their bodies, unable to adapt to the planet's atmosphere, grew frail. Rejected and hunted by local tribes, the Dropa sought refuge in the caves, where they eventually died, leaving behind the stone discs as their only message. Mainstream science met the claim with silence and skepticism. The official Chinese authorities denied the existence of Samam Nui, and no academic journal published his findings. The Dropa stones, it seemed, vanished from public view. But photographs and secondary reports continued to surface over the years. In 1974, Austrian engineer Erich von Daniken, a prominent proponent of the ancient astronaut theory, brought renewed attention to the stones, claiming they were further evidence of alien visitation in prehistoric times. Soon after, a Soviet scientist named S. Vyacheslav Zaitsev published an article in Sputnik magazine claiming that the Dropa stones contained high concentrations of cobalt and other metals, and that some emitted strange vibrations when subjected to sound frequencies. He even suggested that the discs might have once been used for communication or energy transmission. If true, this would place them far outside the realm of known ancient technologies. The design of the discs only deepens the mystery. Their size and shape resemble modern-day compact discs or data storage media. The spiral grooves hint at encoded information, not unlike the etched patterns used to store digital data today. Were the Dropa stones primitive carvings, or the remnants of advanced alien recording devices? Skeptics argue that the story of the Dropa stones is a hoax, the product of Cold War-era sensationalism and miscommunication. They note the absence of original artifacts in museums, the lack of verifiable sources, and the disappearance of key figures associated with the tale. Yet no one has definitively disproven the account either. The stones, if they ever existed in the numbers reported, are now lost or hidden. Still, the story refuses to die. It taps into something deeper, a yearning to uncover evidence of contact, of another intelligence that reached across the stars and left its mark not in soaring pyramids or vast ziggurats, but in silent caves, carved into stone discs and buried with their creators. Are the Dropa stones ancient records from beings not of this earth? Or merely misinterpreted relics of a forgotten culture? Whatever the truth, their legend endures, etched in spirals, scattered through whispers, and sealed in the remote highlands where the clouds still touch the earth. From the stone discs of the east, we now move west, to a strange event recorded in fiery skies, witnessed by an entire city, and carved forever into the wood of a 16th-century German chronicle. The Nuremberg Celestial Phenomenon, a 1561 aerial battle. On the morning of April 14, 1561, as the people of Nuremberg, Germany began their day, the skies above their walled city became the stage for a spectacle so vast and terrifying, it would be recorded not only in eyewitness accounts but etched forever into the annals of unexplained history. What they witnessed was not an eclipse nor a storm. It was, as one chronicler put it, a dreadful apparition, a battle in the heavens between unknown flying shapes, played out in the early light of dawn. The most enduring record of this event comes from a broadsheet printed by Hans Glaser, a woodcut artist and publisher, just days after the phenomenon. His illustration shows the sky above Nuremberg filled with crosses, spheres, cylinders, crescents, and rods, all moving in coordinated formations. Some appear to be engaged in aerial combat, others fall from the sky in trails of smoke. Below, citizens stand in confusion and fear, watching the heavens as though the apocalypse had begun. According to the accompanying text, the sky filled suddenly with a multitude of cylindrical objects, from which emerged numerous black and red spheres. These orbs darted about, clashing violently in what appeared to be a coordinated battle. Large, dark, spear-like shapes hovered at the edges, and what looked like a giant black spear or arrow loomed ominously in the center of it all. As the clash continued, some of the objects fell to earth, burning as they descended, only to vanish upon impact. The whole scene, witnesses claimed, lasted over an hour. This wasn't an isolated hallucination or a symbolic image. Nuremberg was a bustling city of craftsmen, scholars, and traders, and many of its citizens testified to having seen the phenomenon. For them, it wasn't abstract, it was real. At the time, the event was interpreted through the lens of 16th-century religious belief. Glaser's pamphlet included a stern warning to sinners to repent, suggesting this sky battle was a divine sign of God's judgment. But the illustration itself tells another story, a structured, almost mechanical arrangement of shapes behaving in a manner far beyond natural phenomena. Modern theorists have long debated the nature of this event. To astronomers, it might have been a combination of sundogs, optical illusions, and meteorological phenomena, exaggerated by fear and religious fervor. Yet the level of detail in the report, objects launching from tubes, aerial formations, collisions, and explosions, resist simple explanations. Some historians suggest mass hallucination, driven by psychological stress or religious hysteria. But the depiction of distinct, geometrical craft, some shaped like cigars or cylinders, others as perfect orbs, strikingly mirrors descriptions from modern UFO sightings. Could it be that what the people of Nuremberg saw was an early mass encounter with advanced non-human technology, observed long before the advent of aviation? Ancient astronaut theorists argue that the incident may have been a clash between rival alien factions, or perhaps a demonstration meant to instill fear or awe in human observers. They point to the precision and variation of the craft, suggesting that the technology on display was not of this earth. The event wasn't random, it was orchestrated. Adding to the mystery is the existence of a nearly identical phenomenon in Basel, Switzerland, just 5 years later in 1566. A similar broadsheet recorded strange black spheres battling in the skies over the city, again witnessed by large crowds. The recurrence of such events, across borders, yet reported with similar imagery, raises deeper questions. Was the 16th century a period of heightened extraterrestrial activity? Were certain regions, like Nuremberg and Basel, being observed, or perhaps caught in the crossfire of something much larger? Despite centuries of technological progress, no conclusive answer has emerged. The broadsheets survive in libraries and museums, silently waiting for their meaning to be rediscovered. They do not scream for attention. They simply show what was seen, without embellishment. What remains is the chilling sense that for one brief moment, the veil between our world and another lifted, and the sky turned into a battlefield. Now we leave the smoke-filled air over Nuremberg and turn our attention to a centuries-old chart, etched not into the sky, but onto an animal skin. A map so precise, and so impossibly advanced, that some believe it could only have been drawn with a view from far above the Earth. The Piri Reis map, Earth seen from the sky. In 1929, as Turkish authorities catalogued the holdings of the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, they came across a fragment of an ancient map, drawn on a gazelle-skin parchment. It was dated to 1513, signed by Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis, and it would soon become one of the most perplexing artifacts in cartographic history. Known simply as the Piri Reis map, this document portrayed the Atlantic coasts of Europe, Africa, and the Americas with startling accuracy, long before such coastlines were officially mapped. But what truly astonished researchers wasn't just the detail. It was the presence of Antarctica, a continent not officially discovered until 1818, and on this map, it appeared ice-free. The rendering closely resembled the Queen Maud Land region, a part of Antarctica buried beneath thousands of feet of ice. The implication? That someone had mapped the southernmost continent before the last ice age, when it was still free of its icy shroud. Piri Reis himself, in the notes written on the map's margins, stated that he compiled the map using older sources, some dating back to ancient Greece and even more ancient origins he did not name. He admitted he never personally sailed the Atlantic, but drew from 20 charts and Mappe Mundi, some said to be from the time of Alexander the Great. These mysterious source maps have never been found. How could such ancient sources have accurately charted coastlines that would only become visible with the advent of satellite imaging? Some geographers propose that the map preserved knowledge from a lost civilization, perhaps Atlantis, whose seafarers once circumnavigated the globe and passed down their data through generations. But the ancient astronaut theorists saw something else. To them, the Piri Reis map is not just an echo of lost humanity, but evidence of external influence, of beings who observed Earth from above and passed their observations to early humans. The notion that a 16th-century sailor could reconstruct preglacial topography without outside help seemed improbable. But what if the original source was not human at all? The map's projection style, using a form of spherical trigonometry, aligns more closely with aerial mapping techniques than with medieval European methods. Some argue this suggests the original cartographers had access to a bird's-eye view of the planet, a feat impossible before the age of flight. Others point out the precise longitudinal positioning, something humans were only able to calculate accurately after the invention of the chronometer in the 18th century. Piri Reis was no fraud. He was a respected naval commander and scholar of his time. That he attributed the accuracy of his map to older, now lost sources gives credibility to the idea that he himself was only a custodian of older knowledge, not its originator. If so, who were the originators? Was it a seafaring civilization wiped out by cataclysm? Or were the true authors something altogether different, non-human observers, charting Earth for their own reasons, leaving behind clues for us to rediscover when we were finally ready to understand? The Piri Reis map remains in the Topkapi Palace to this day, rarely seen by the public, its surface aged and fragile, yet its implications more enduring than ever. Its curves and coasts hint at a world long forgotten, or perhaps, a world long watched. From megalithic temples and alien-looking statues to sky battles and ancient charts, we've walked through some of the most enduring mysteries that blur the lines between ancient history and cosmic wonder. Each site, each artifact, each symbol invites us to reconsider what we think we know about the past. Were these all coincidences, the product of imagination, natural phenomena, or artistic expression? Or were they whispers from beyond the stars, encoded in stone, bone, and ink? The answers remain buried, beneath the earth, in forgotten texts, and perhaps in our own unwillingness to look deeper. But if history has taught us anything, it's this. The truth does not disappear. It waits. And so this journey may end here. But the search never will.